It's the Wrestling Perspective Podcast. I'm Dennis Farrell, and he's NWA's own Eli Drake.
That's right. And here we are on this beautiful evening. What do we have to talk about this week?
Well, not a lot's happened in the wrestling news except for one of your own getting in a little trouble. We'll talk about that here in a second. I want to touch on CM Punk. You brought that up in our pre-game where you want to talk a little bit about CM Punk being back with WWE, but not with WWE. I want to talk about some Survivor Series stuff and what that means with the NXT AEW ratings war. We're talking about your appearance on Stone Cold, which was amazing, by the way.
Oh, well, thanks.
I was like...
is that just you blowing smoke, or was it actually... See, I get in this weird thing where I start listening to myself, and I'll go... I don't listen to a lot of the podcasts I do, but of course I had to go back and listen to that one. This is probably, of course, second to this one. Probably the biggest podcast I've ever done. I don't know, when I'm sitting there listening, I'm just like, does anybody give a shit about anything I'm saying? Does anybody care about any of these stories? Am I boring everyone out of their mind? But I mean, most people said it was pretty good, so who knows?
Here's, as a friend, I'll give you the truth. I waited like a kid at Christmas for it to drop because you're a friend. Stone Cold's podcast is one of those podcasts I only listen to when there's somebody interesting on that he's interviewing. I think he's good, but he's one of those guys I have to take in doses. And that's not an insult. I mean, when he interviews someone I'm interested in...
It's just a fact of life.
It is, yeah. If he interviews somebody I'm interested in, I'm all in. And it's almost the same way with Conrad Thompson stuff, whether it's, 89 weeks or something to wrestle with. If they talk about a pay-per-view or something I enjoyed in the past...
83 weeks, I think it is.
I don't even know.
Something like that.
Eric Bischoff's show. If it's one of those...
I like the Tony Schiavone one, but I haven't listened to it in a long time. Is he still doing that, by the way?
I love Tony Schiavone. Never listened to his podcast.
Oh, no, I actually thought it was pretty decent, but I didn't mean to derail you. Continue.
So I waited for yours to pop up, and when it did, I downloaded it immediately, and I listened to it probably 5 minutes after it hit the store shelves, as they would say in retail, I guess. I thought it was. It's
so funny too because he's so him, in the sense that he's kind of hands off, in the sense that it was just me and him there. He recorded it, but I was like, "So how's this all work?" Whatever. He was like, "I don't know. I sent it in. They put it out." And I was like, "Well, when's it come out?" And he was like, "Tuesday, Wednesday, one of those days." And I'm like, "All right, cool." So I was expecting it wasn't coming out till today. So you were actually the first one to let me know that it was out.
I listened.
So when you told me,
I texted you.
When you told me, I checked it out, and I was like, "Oh hell yeah, I got to listen to this then."
So what did you guys talk about? Let's start with this since we're on it now. He said that you guys were talking for about 20 minutes before you hit record. What was the conversation like?
I mean, it was super easy to relax. First, he came out and met me in the driveway. He came out and he was just kind of checking out my car because I had texted him beforehand, as he mentioned that. How was the parking, whatever, and I know he's got a white Corvette amongst 10, 15 other cars. But basically, I was just asking how the parking was. He told me that there was going to be this shitty little Ford Focus sitting in the driveway, and I was like, oh, it's too bad. I thought maybe if I pulled in the driveway, we'd have twin Corvettes. And he was like, yeah, sure, and put this little laughing, crying emoji or whatever in the message. So I get over there, and he's like, oh, shit, I didn't think you were actually going to pull up in a Corvette. And so we started talking about that a little bit. We're just talking about anything. We're just talking about dogs and wrestling because his dog was hanging out there. I was telling him because everything that had just happened with the dog shop that I go and volunteer for, that stuff happened just the night before. So I was talking about that. But I don't know. It's just anything and everything. Just super easy dude to have a conversation with.
What can you tell me about Stone Cold's house? Because in my mind, Stone Cold probably has... All right, so I'm not going for the jokes here. This is what I would realistically view Stone Cold's house as. A typical California home where it's probably not as big as you would think it would be. Maybe a 3-car garage tops, a 4-bedroom place. I would say... And this is all making guesses, maybe a few miles from some sort of lake or ocean, and his wife would have designed most of it, but he kind of has a man cave.
Well, I can't tell you any of that because I don't know.
Did he not let you in?
I was in the junior house, and what I mean by that is he basically owns two houses next to each other. One of them is the house he actually lives in. The other one is the house that is essentially specifically for the podcast, as far as I can tell. It's essentially his podcast studio that also happens to have, from what I saw, at least 2 bedrooms and at least 1 bathroom. So it's just like a small little California house, as you were saying. But I'm pretty sure, because he was talking about a pool in the backyard of his other one and building high walls so people couldn't see the pool and whatnot. I'm assuming there's some sort of nude sunbathing or something going on there. That I actually didn't go in there, but we talked about it a little bit because he was saying he has his own gym in there and whatnot, because we were both talking about where we train and where we work out and whatnot, and he was saying like he doesn't bother going to Gold's or anything like that anymore because just people bother him and stuff like that, and it's like he appreciates it, but at the same time it's like he wants to get a workout done. And it's just kind of tough and it's distracting. Not to mention Gold's Gym Venice is so packed with people, it's tough to get like an effective workout in sometimes. So he's got his own gym in his place with just like, it's pretty simple basics. It's got like a rack in it where he can do like squats and deadlifts and bench and presses and all kinds of stuff, pull-ups and stuff like that. So but I didn't actually get to see inside the palace. Although, supposedly, I'm invited back anytime in the future. We shall find out.
See, that was going to be my next question, was at the end, he told you, you'll text me anytime, come over, we'll hang out. Do you do that? Do you text Stone Cold like, hey, what are you doing? You want to go get some beers?
Well, I was surprised to get a phone call from him this past Sunday morning out of the blue. That was just kind of different, but... I picked up and we just talked for a minute, but most of it was just kind of him getting an idea of just little details. He wanted to narrow down details for things to mention on the podcast when he was introing or outroing or stuff like that. So, I mean, there were personal elements in there, but I don't think it was overall a personal call. But at the same time, I mean, if that is happening, I'm not going to tell everybody. I mean, if I was going to have a personal relationship with somebody, I'm going to keep that to myself. Except for my sweet, lovely Michelle, that's making all this noise in the kitchen behind me. And I guarantee you can hear it, and I'll tell you why, because I've got garbage microphones. Because if you listen to that episode with Steve, he's talking about how, like, my chair, you can probably hear the dog just barking. He was talking about my chair creaking on his episode because he also has a creaky chair just like mine. But you know what? You couldn't hear a damn thing. He's probably got, like, an amazing microphone. I need to get whatever microphones he has because this microphone picks up every single sound in the room.
It wasn't that bad. I did not hear the squeaking, and I had headphones on when I listened to the podcast, and I'm used to the Eli Drake squeak.
Right. It seems like every chair I sit in, maybe I have a weight problem. I'm not sure, but every chair I sit in has a little squeak to it. Here it is.
I geeked out because I can finally say that my name was said on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, so thank you for that.
Oh, boy.
And by the way, I felt like I had to tell you how to say my last name after that one interview you did where you're like, yeah, I got fired because of some guy named Dennis Farrell or Farrell or
Yeah, see, I think of the musical artist Pharrell.
No, you should think of Will
Ferrell. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was a good that was a good association.
Good. Outside of that, I thought it was great. I enjoyed your notoriously late stories, so that showed a little bit more of the human side of you. You didn't come off like, woe was me. You owned up, and you were kind of like, I screwed up, and I ruined a lot of chances, and that kind of humanized you to me.
And, I actually sat and thought about that a lot after the interview, and I really started picking it apart because, we literally sat. I got to his place probably, 10 minutes till noon, one of the rare times where I was actually on time for something. I got there about 10 minutes to noon. And I don't think I left his place till about 2:45 p.m. So, we were sitting there, and I think the actual runtime of the actual show might have been like 1:40 or something like that. So there was probably another good hour that we were just sitting there talking because I kind of hung out afterwards, and we just kind of, once you turn the recorder off, we still just hung out and chatted, and we talked about all kinds of different stuff until finally, I was just like, I'm going to get out of your hair, get out of here. I'm going to go get a workout in and whatnot. That's right. I was the one to detach and say I was going to leave. I did it.
That was smart, though. That was smart.
Well, I mean, look, I'm a guest at somebody's house. The last thing you want to do is like There's nothing worse because I've had it so many times where like somebody's over. Either you're ready to go to bed or you got to be somewhere and you're just thinking like, I don't want to be a dickhead, but I just wish they'd leave right now. And, I'm thinking like, well, I don't want to be that person. I was like, so, we've had a good talk to this point. I'll get up. I'll use the restroom. I'll get my ass out of here.
I have friends too, and being around Petey, I've seen.
You have friends too?
I barely.
Look at you.
But being around Petey, I've seen that a lot from fans where you're sitting at the table, you're trying to sell hats or a shirt or whatever, and you have the one guy that wants to stay in there and not buy anything. And every once in a while, that's fine. But he'll spend 20 to 30 minutes just talking to you about nothing. And you can't really say, are you going to buy something or move on? But at the same time, you just
some guys do that.
I've seen that happen too, by the way. Tommy Dreamer has been like, hey, move on. But I've also seen Tommy say, pull up a seat, sit down. I'm going to tell you 900 stories because it's slow.
Moose used to do that. A lot of times we'd be sitting next to each other, and I would cringe when he'd do it because I don't know, it just feels off. I mean, like if you're doing it in character or something like that, I get it. I don't know. Like to me, it's like when I'm on character, I'm on screen doing my shit. It's like that's one thing. But like once I'm actually like meeting the people, talking to the people, I'm gonna try to be as reasonably nice as I can. I mean, obviously the people are appreciating me to some point where they want to stand there and talk to me. So it's like I want to give them as much as I can without taking away from the other people. So if there's a way to balance that and make it work, I try to make it work.
I did cringe a little bit during the podcast when he's like, have you ever heard of that Moose guy? Whatever happened to him? And it's like, ooh.
I felt really bad for Moose there. But you know what? Honestly, I didn't mind the fact that he was like, I don't even know where you can catch Impact. I was like, well, there's a couple guys there that I'd like to pie face. So
understandable. But I did cringe because it's like, yeah, Moose is like one of the most over guys, and he's doing pretty well on the independent circuit. Stone, but
I mean, he brings up a real thing. But I mean, how many of those guys are in touch with the independent circuit first and foremost? But then beyond that, it's like he's not wrong. I mean, up until just being on Access, and I don't even know how accessible Access is. Who the hell had Pursuit? And I don't mean that as any disrespect. I mean that as an honest question. Like it's just damn hard to find. So I completely understand what he's saying. And even with Pop was eons better than Pursuit, but even then it's still like how many people really got Pop. So I completely get it.
You know what? I'll say this. Because of Impact and Pop, I really fell in love with Schitt's Creek. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we were the lead-in for a long time there, and I remember just being like, for a while, I didn't know that was a show on another network. So I was like, oh, is that a show just on Pop? I was like, see if I was talking to people at Impact. I was like, hey, ask them if I can get like somehow like read for a role or something. And then I come to find out that it wasn't. I don't know who makes that show, but it wasn't just for Pop, obviously.
I'd have to imagine it's a Canadian show.
It has that cast, right?
It does, because the Levies are Canadian.
Yeah, and it seems like there's always like kind of that same crew, like the mom from Home Alone and him, and I feel like John Candy would have been a part of it if he was still around.
I would agree with that. He'd be like the crazy uncle.
Yeah.
So I guess we should move on. We can touch back on Stone Cold here in a minute, but the big news of the day was.
Well, actually, just before we go, I don't know if I finished on my point there, but I did go home and just rack my brain on the whole thing. And I know even when I talked to Steve on Sunday morning, I was just like, man, I hope I didn't sound like a whiny bitch or like I was unloading any kind of hardships I may have had in my career on somebody else, because I didn't want it to sound like that. Even today on Twitter, I like corrected. Somebody posted an article where they just took an excerpt from it, and they were like, Eli Drake talks about his issues with Bill DeMott. And I'm like, I have that shit was 6 years ago. I haven't seen Bill DeMott, haven't talked to Bill DeMott. I have no issue with him. As a matter of fact, I even said on the podcast, I said I enjoyed and appreciated his in-ring coaching style. I like a drill sergeant guy. I like a guy who's like hard-nosed and wants you to take the shit seriously in the ring. What I didn't like was the out-of-the-ring stuff where there was the disrespectful bullshit and all that kind of stuff. But aside from that, to just pinpoint and be like his issues, there's no issue. I mean, that was obviously ultimately what ended up with me leaving or being fired, but at the same time, I have a responsibility for that. I have a responsibility for how do I respond to those things? How do I handle those things? How do I show up on time so that I'm not loading the gun with ammunition? Just different stuff like that. So it was just like I just wanted to make sure, and I couldn't remember how I'd phrased things, and I just wanted to make it sure that it didn't sound like I was blaming other people for any time where something might have gone awry, because that was definitely not the case.
You didn't come off any of that, and even when you were talking about Bill, you made it a point to put him over and make it understandable that you screwed up, but you also pushed the fact that you probably paid for it 5 times over than you probably should have.
Oh my! It was so ridiculous. Look, okay, not to rehash this, everything that was on the Austin podcast, but it's like with the Mattel thing, just being taken off that was an enormous punishment, and then it's like, okay, well, that sucks, that's awful, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now you're off SmackDown too, and you're not going to be on the next 3 weeks of live events, and it's like, well, goddamn, it's like I got a speeding ticket. But instead of, giving me a fine, they put me in solitary confinement for 6 months. Like, what? The punishment just didn't fit the crime, I didn't feel like. Regardless.
I guess I kind of agree from being an outsider and not really knowing that aspect of the business. Although, I got punished too for my fair share of stuff through Impact, and I'm not even employed there, so.
I mean, it's two different things, but I mean, there's a lot of soft egos in wrestling. Not saying that any of those people are that or whatever, but I'm saying that's a lot that incorporates into it. There's a lot of soft egos in the backstage area. Just a lot of that kind of stuff. And then there's a lot of job justification, where you have to make your job seem very important. That way your higher ups do not come down on you and question what you're doing and stuff like that. So it makes you appear busy. It makes you appear that you are doing your job, I guess maybe go over the top for certain things.
Oh, absolutely. And I love the guys that have no power but walk around thinking they have the power. I get a chuckle out of that.
Well, that's most of the damn wrestlers.
It's even, you know what? It's even better at an indie show where, because I'll walk in there and I'm probably, and look, I don't mean to stroke my own ego here, but for just a second, humor me. But I like to think that some of these guys here in Michigan, not the guys, the promoters, but some of the guys on the show, I might have a little bit of a bigger following than they do, but yet they walk around there like they're the cat's meow.
Yeah, well, I mean, see, there's a fine line there. Some of that's fake it till you make it. I would definitely say I'm sure a lot of people probably pointed their fingers at me in that same way, because I've always carried myself in a certain way. At the same time, there's a fine line between carrying yourself a certain way, like you're the cat's meows, you might say, or the cock of the walk, if you will, and being an asshole to people. Whereas, I'm quiet, so I'm perceived as an asshole. I've never outright been an asshole to anybody. So that whole perception is reality thing's kind of bullshit, because it's really like if you're perceiving somebody to be an asshole without ever really having any interaction with them, who's really the asshole in that interaction?
No, I agree. When we talked about you before you came onto the podcast, when Petey and I would talk about my perception of you backstage, I was shocked at how quiet and kept to yourself you were. And people out there in podcast land, this is Eli Drake backstage from the many times I've seen him. Is he walks around with his headphones, his big jug of water, his shirt with no sleeves on. But if I had arms like yours, I wouldn't wear sleeves either. And
well, especially at that place, though, I was probably about to go to the gym or just coming back from it.
Yeah, and you just kind of kept to yourself. You didn't spend any time in the makeshift gorilla position or the catering position, which was next to the gorilla position, or anywhere like that. If you didn't stretch out in the ring, you were not anywhere but in the locker room or locker room hall, and that was it.
Yeah, I kind of just mill about a lot. Like I'll move around a bit. I don't really stay in one place too much, but at the same time, it's like, I'll drop in and talk to somebody for like a kind of a split second and move on. But I that's the funny thing is some people ask me, about like different gossip or maybe something like that. And I'm like, I really don't know. I keep my nose clean of most of that. So it's like, even, anything I've even gotten into in the past, it's like nobody knows or would know because I don't really share that or talk to that many people. It's kind of like, I just kind of go there. I do my business. I'm friendly with everybody. I'm sure I've definitely been short with people, not on purpose, but just whether I was in a bad mood or whatever. Or maybe I was distracted with something. I know there was definitely a point when I'd first re-signed last year, and in that like late summertime where it was just like they didn't have a damn thing for me. And I remember like Sammy Callahan would come up to me or Brian Cage would come up to me and they'd be like, "What are you doing tonight?" And I'd tell them, and they're like, "What are they doing with you right now? Like I don't even get this. Like you're one of our best guys, and you're just." Like I was doing like the open challenge thing, which was decent, and it led to like kind of some cool, funny things. But it was like, I don't know. For the longest time, it was like I was just kind of floundering around. And that's not a disparaging thing, everybody. So calm down. But to where even the other talent is noticing, like. What the hell is this? It just became frustrating. So, yeah, I'm sure that to some people I probably came off as short, probably an asshole. I know probably with Joe Hendry for sure, and I didn't mean to because he was a nice guy, but it was just like it was during that whole time where I was just like, this whole thing's so stupid. I just kind of walk around pissed off and with a chip on my shoulder and stuff like that, and just feeling like, I was the damn world champion. Just a few months ago, I was a tag team champion. A little bit after that, and now it's like I'm damn bottom of the barrel. Because whether it's a personal thing or whatever. So, other than that, barring that, I was always just friendly in the sense of just saying hello, how you doing, blah blah blah, whatever. And for the most part, then after that, it's just I kept to myself. Other than my boys Seidel and Eddie and Moose and Trevor Lee when he was around. And all those guys, but otherwise, I kind of just. I was tight with Cross and tight with LAX and all those guys, but still, it was just like once I was there, I was mostly business minded. Other than I was party dad, and I'd set up the party bus and going out to the club or whatever we were doing that night. But other than that, there for the business.
Joe Hendry was one of those guys I didn't feel like got a fair shake in the States. I thought he could have been really big with the shtick he was doing. And I was a huge fan of him after I saw and got to know him. I was really disappointed he didn't get a real good look from any other companies over here.
Well, I think the big problem is that one of the big issues I had, no matter what the regime was at Impact, was that I would start to get some steam, accidental or not, because it was like usually I was always a heel, and then it was like they'd start to come around and start liking me. New regime would come in, and then they'd find a way to kind of pull it back again, build some steam, crowd's getting on me, new regime comes in or new writing staff or something like that, and it was like pulling back, and it was like I was always kind of that weird tweener where it was like no matter if I talk trash on the crowd, if I said bad things about people in the audience, bad things about the baby faces, they still gravitated to me. They still would react well to me from, about 50-50. So I don't think that it worked out well a couple times for the people that they tried to bring in expecting a different reaction, because with the Joe Hendry thing, it was kind of cool the first once or twice that we did it. By the time we got to MediaCon in the UK, mind you, we were in the UK at MediaCon, what was it, last September 2018, I got a giant pop and he got booed while we were wrestling each other. So there's some disconnect there in the way the writers were seeing me and using me and the way that the audiences were reacting to me. It was the same thing with James Ellsworth at Bound for Glory. They were like, oh, James Ellsworth's going to come out. He's going to get a huge pop. And I'm like, it's not going to work that way. First of all, they're expecting Jericho, and if they get anything other than that, they're going to shit on it. But not only that, it's James Ellsworth. Do you really think people are going to be that excited and they're going to believe him possibly going over on me or whatever? I was like, let's go and do it, but it's not going to go the way you think it is. And it was immediate. F you, Ellsworth, da, 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 all that. And so it was just a lot of times I think there was just I don't know. I don't know what the thought was. But I think that those types of ideas are the reason that somebody like Joe Hendry kind of didn't get a fair shake, because once we come into that and it just kind of falters off, where's he got left to go?
Because I've given, thrown things out to Petey because he was part of the booking and production and all that stuff. And when he told me about the Ellsworth thing, I said, it's going to be stupid. It's not going to work. And he's like, yeah, but our hands are tied.
I mean, it ended up being great, but not in the way they thought.
Boy, I don't know if you know the meaning of great.
I'm saying great in the sense of solid ass crowd interaction. The crowd was hanging on every damn thing we said. And it was really good in that sense. And I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever gotten such a big babyface reaction in my damn life. But that was from the start, from the time my music hits. You can go back and watch a pay-per-view. The time you hear Eli Drake, you pop, you see people just jumping up. And then here I come, I do my thing, I start talking to people, or just following every single damn thing I say. I'm trying to shit on New York. They're still on my side. I'm talking trash on, this city's only famous for pizza. They're still on my side. Then this guy comes out, it's game over. But it was still like they were hot the whole damn way through. The only thing that saved it was Abyss coming out, because he's Abyss.
My suggestion, by the way, and I really thought Pete was going to be able to push this through, was I thought they should have had Don Callis come out dressed as Jericho.
Oh, boy.
No? No?
Well, I mean, yeah, but where do you go with that? Because that would have been tremendously shot on.
Yeah, but what were you going to do with Ellsworth, too? It's the same thing. It's a one-off match. You don't have to go anywhere with it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing it did was serve to honestly put me over more, which, fine, but it wasn't putting me over in the way that they were intending.
Let's move on. There's a couple quick questions I have personally before we get into this NWA news. I'm watching NWA. I'm listening to you talk about NXT, and thinking of WWE and even Impact. But how much smaller, because it looks smaller, is the NWA ring compared to the other organizations you've been in?
The only one that's smaller than is WWE. It's the same size as Impact. It's an 18 by 18 foot ring, and WWE is the only one that has a 20 by 20.
Okay, because the NWA ring, for maybe it's the arena, just looks smaller than everybody else's.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too when I was in it, and I asked, and they confirmed it was an 18 by 18. Because I've been in 16s before. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood uses a 16, and it's a little bit bigger than that one. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it either goes 16, 18, or 20. It's not a 16, definitely not a 20, so it's an 18.
All right, let's knock out this unfortunate circumstance with Jim Cornette and what happened. Apparently, they released episode 7, and Jim Cornette had some unfortunate comments on there. You can look them up if you want. We don't need to talk about them here. Maybe I'm out of touch. I don't know if they were. I don't know. I don't even want to get into the comments. But
I know, because you're afraid that the same thing's going to happen to you.
A little bit, but it was. But I don't know. We maybe one day when this dies down, we can dissect and talk about it and ask questions. But the episode airs. He had said some unfortunate stuff. They pull it, they fix it, they put it back up. Cornette resigns, and I don't know if he was forced out or if he went out on his own. I don't know any of that sort of stuff.
Neither do I.
My question to you is, how did that even make the ear? If it was that egregious of a comment, how did NWA even let that hit the ear? How is Jim Cornette, granted he said it, but there should be somebody else taking a beating on this, because whether he said whatever he said, and if it was bad or not, how did someone oversee that and still post that show?
Well, we don't have a giant editing team like WWE or anybody else. I don't even think, and I know even Impact has a kind of a skeleton crew, but even they, I believe, would have at least a couple more ears on everything that's going on. To my knowledge, we have one person at the moment doing the bulk of the editing, and that same person is putting together the 10 pounds of gold segments, putting together any of the other video packages that we have and all that. So it's a lot of content to go through. Not that that's an excuse, but unless it's something that's really glaringly, obviously out there, I could see how it could slip through the cracks. Not only that, I don't know. I mean, it makes it kind of tough to excuse that. But again, you're talking about one person that it's going through with so much stuff, such a massive amount of stuff. And I just don't know that. I don't know that it was that glaringly obvious at first. I remember hearing it and thinking like, that was a poor choice of food for sure. But I think the whole comment was more aimed at hunger than race.
I agree.
But that's my take on it. But the problem is that there was already a group of people just looking for anything. There's already a large group of people with the guns pointed at him. Just happened they were empty, and they were just looking for somebody to hand him some bullets, and he handed them the bullets.
Do you feel like the guy editing the show should take any sort of heat? Because I kind of feel like there should be something that falls upon his shoulders. And I'm not calling for anybody's head. And maybe if I'm Jim Cornette, I feel a little hung out to dry on this situation where if you say something on a pre-recorded show that still has to go through editing, get put together, and then air, someone should have caught that and fixed it before it hit the air. And see,
the tough thing with that is I love Jim Cornette, so I'm not trying to say a bad thing about him. But at the same time, at the end of the day, the responsibility does still fall on him because it came out of his mouth. And if it lit a bulb off in his head, he could have made a note to say, hey, maybe you want to take this out or whatever. I'm sure it didn't because, again, in his mind, this is my belief anyway, he's making a comment on hunger and not race. But that aside, I guess obviously some blame does go to the editor. But again, I'm just imagining I don't know. To me, it's human. It's a mistake. I think it would be easy for something like that to fall through the cracks. Again, when it's not glaringly obvious and you're going through hours and hours. Like, okay, that hour-long show, now we taped for the most part. We taped it live in a sense to where it's all like in order, but not all of it. And then you got to consider the ads that they're putting in between, the different cuts that they're doing. So to make that 1 hour show, there's probably a good 7 or 8 hours of editing. So you're talking 7 or 8 hours of editing for that. Any little 15, 30-second spot they're putting together, 10 pounds of gold. You're talking about a whole lot of editing and, going back and listening. So you're talking probably in a week, any given week, gotta be in the realm of 40 plus hours of editing and listening back stuff. Now, obviously, that's anybody's normal work week. Do people mess up in their normal work week? Probably. And I would say that it's pretty easy, pretty possible for somebody to miss that if you're going into the wee hours. And I don't know that these are the circumstances. I'm giving, what ifs because I could see this happening because I've edited video myself. I've done some of this stuff and it takes a very long time. And you can go into the hours of the night. Your eyes start getting glassy. You're just like, oh my God, I got to get this done. It sounds fine. It looks fine. Let's print it. Something like that happens. And I don't know. I mean, that stuff happens sometimes. Hell, what was it? SummerSlam 1990 when the damn Royal Rumble or whatever it was when that damn sign fell off and Gene Okerlund yells out. I mean, that was taped and that made it out. So, I mean, and I'm sure that guy was probably fired, but at the same time, it's like, the difference is WWE has a whole team and a whole crew of people to do that stuff. So that one guy might have been fired, but there's 10 other people to take his place. And at the same time, his one job that day might have been that one piece or a couple other pieces, not the whole damn show and everything that has to do with it.
I get it. I get it and I understand it. But at the same time, That's your last line of defense on making sure you don't put shit out.
Yeah.
And if you're going to give the last line of defense that kind of pass on something like this, what's next?
It's not a pass. It's just like I can be lenient on it only for the fact that, again, it's just I think it's the workload.
Also, I get that I guess the punishment's different because you do have Jim Cornette, who is a multi-time offender with whatever he says. He's controversial. So I get that he's held to a different standard than the editing crew guy.
At the same time, if anybody else said it, I don't know if the reaction would have been. It still would have had some traction, but I don't think it would have been as bad.
So they say that they're going to do some different stuff here to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't get out. Didn't really get into it. You probably don't know. Do you have an idea of what they're going to do to replace Jim Cornette going forward? I think they have to what? Your next taping's December 12th or 15th?
14th. I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, everything that I've found out has all been via the internet, except for a small conversation I had with Nick Aldis last night. Other than that, you're kind of finding out as I find out. Just because I don't know, like they're very busy with whatever they're doing, and unless I need to be made aware of something, that I don't bother.
Let me ask you this.
It's really funny because it parallels Impact just before I became the champion, where it was like Jim Cornette was there for that one taping. It was great, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm enjoying working with Jim. And then it was like, for whatever reason, he wasn't there for the next one.
Let me ask you this. If it was up to you, and within reason, maybe even free agents out there, is there a guy you would pick to take his spot?
Oh, man. I don't know, man, because there really aren't that many great wrestling commentators still around. So, like, I mean, that his commentary work, in my opinion, was probably the best commentary going in wrestling right now. WWE's commentary is so bland and so vanilla. Hell, I wouldn't even call it vanilla. Vanilla would be a compliment because that would actually have some flavor. There's no flavor to their commentary. And at least with the AEW, it has that medicinal sound of JR and Tony Schiavone. But I don't know. Otherwise, as far as actually putting some passion and some feeling into it, I feel like Cornette was just on fire. So I don't know who could replace that at this point. I don't know anybody on the indies, for the most part, who can put that together. And if they go find some professional announcer or whatever, it's just I don't know, because that's kind of what WWE's gone for, is that professional announcer sound. And it sounds so damn canned.
Would you put Colt Cabana in that spot for now, since he's done it with Ring of Honor for so many years?
Could be, but I mean, then you're talking about a guy who's the national champion, so it's kind of hard to do that and do both. Hell, they could put me in. I'm not a champion or anything. I'll be a damn good color commentator. I
mean, you did just. Would you say you just officially turned heel on episode 7?
I mean, I was just being me.
You don't have to ride the fence. You just brutally beat somebody with like a turnbuckle hook. So it's okay to say, I'm kind of a heel.
Hadn't anybody ever gotten on your nerves before? Just under your skin a little bit, and you just,
every week on Wednesday nights.
See?
But no, let's move on. There was a game I want to play with you. Wait, is there anything else about this that we should talk about or you want to bring up? By the way, episode 7, great. Still, NWA is probably one of the smoothest, easiest watching shows out right now. If I had to rank them, I stopped watching WWE, not because I'm trying to make a statement or I think the product's horrible, and
that's the most annoying thing.
I'm just not going to watch it. That's not why. It's, I find myself during football season watching football on Monday nights, Friday night.
I don't understand the brand loyalty stuff. Like, everybody's like, oh, AEW, yeah, or WWE, screw you, AEW, whatever. And it's like, can't you just watch both?
I don't
Can't
get
you
it
just
either.
enjoy both?
Oh, yeah, that reminds me. The Survivor Series thing. So coming up this week is Survivor Series pay-per-view. I don't have the card in front of me, nor are we going to go through and talk about the matches. That's not what we do here. But this year it's NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown. Now, hear me out on something. I think more than ever, if I were booking something, I would put NXT over like Rover in this pay per view. I would have them dominate this pay per view because it's the only brand right now going head to head with AEW. And some weeks they close in, some weeks they fall behind in the ratings. And I really feel like if you put NXT over and you make a big statement and you have the people that watch Raw, you have the people that watch SmackDown that may not watch NXT, you may be able to draw some fans over to that product and help that in the ratings war against AEW, as opposed to giving your A brand or your big $1 billion brand the rub of winning a pay-per-view that nobody's going to remember in 2 months. And it probably won't help either brand. I think from a rating standpoint, NXT really needs to come out ahead in this pay-per-view to help them against AEW, because that right now is the only brand you have going head-to-head, well, with a competitor.
I suppose so, but at the same time, they've got one big conglomerate that they really need to appease, and that's Fox. So I don't know that it'll drive any more viewers if SmackDown goes over or looks really strong, but I feel like that's their main. I feel like that's kind of their baby now. I feel like even Raw has kind of become second best in that sense, only because of the whole Fox thing. I feel like Raw is kind of self-sustaining because it's just been there for so long. It's on the wrestling channel, so to speak, what's been the wrestling channel for the last 30 years, USA. And yeah, I guess Fox is the one where it's like SmackDown, you gotta bring it. And the AEW thing, it's kind of like that's like an image thing, but I don't think that they really like that's the tertiary brand. I think still in everybody's mind. So I think that what you're saying could make sense, although I don't know if it'll drive more viewers. It could.
What if you were in the position of having to worry about that stuff for WWE? What would you worry about? Granted, Fox is the $1 billion baby right now, and you have something like AEW, which is kind of growing like weeds, and it can really be a thorn in WWE's side if they don't really come out and start winning the ratings war, which doesn't really mean much anymore, or nowadays.
Yeah,
it's not like do or die, but
yeah, it's not like I don't think anybody's putting anybody out of business. I don't think that ratings war really matters that much, other than just kind of. I think it matters to AEW more than it matters to WWE, because if AEW comes out on top, it looks like okay, well, we're beating WWE. Okay, cool, great, but they're not, because I think their peak was their very first week, and since then it's kind of fallen off. Now they regained a little bit, and they were like 900,000 or whatever it was. But what's SmackDown do on a bad night? 2 million. So it's like it's not even a contest if you're talking about company versus company, but you're talking about again a tertiary brand versus the entire company of AEW. I don't think that in the grand scheme of things it matters that much, other than a image victory for AEW when they win the ratings war, quote unquote.
And I kind of feel like if WWE really wanted NXT to win that ratings war, they could easily stack the deck and change the tide whenever they want.
How so? Because it seems like they've been trying, at least with sending more. But see, they've been sending these guys down to go to NXT, like what is it, the OC and Finn Balor and all these guys. But at the same time, I feel like even without AEW, they'd have done the same thing because it's a new show. Because it's kind of the same thing they did with ECW back in the day.
Well, I think there would be small things I would do, like having them win Survivor Series or having more NXT talent and then pushing what night a week it is on your two other brands. I don't know what they're.
Oh, for sure.
But they haven't done a good job of that. If from a fan's point of view, I think there's things they could do if they really wanted to close the gap. Or look, if WWE started winning the ratings war, I don't think. I think it could kill AEW's momentum in a lot of towns because they no longer have that. We're taking Triple H's baby and we're beating it each week in the ratings war, and soon we're coming for X, Y, and Z. That's kind of the feather in their cap right now. But you take that away, then they automatically become the clear-cut number 2 brand, and nothing else about it at that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think until they can do the numbers of the flagship shows anyway, they're clear-cut number 2 brand.
All right. I kind of think we're agreeing to disagree here.
Really? I don't know how you could.
I did just talk for 4 minutes about it, and although my argument might be weak at best.
Well, no, I get that, but what I'm saying is, if we're going strictly by the numbers, which is how everybody measures everything, the numbers for AEW don't match up. They don't even come close to SmackDown or Raw. As far as attendance is concerned, WWE can go anywhere in the world and do a decent-sized arena. Pay-per-view buys, subscription buys. They have a more large worldwide exposure for WWE.
Well, I'm not talking about Raw and SmackDown. I'm just talking about what they're going up against.
Come on now. You're talking about clear-cut number 2 company or number 1 company.
Well, hang on now.
You got to be able to beat the flagship. If your flagship show ain't beating the other company's flagship show, you're number 2.
Clearly, they're number 2. I'm not arguing that.
That's what I was saying.
Eli, hang on here. Hear me out.
Come on. I'm coming up there right now.
Hear me out. What I'm saying is, right now, they're beating Triple H's baby, NXT, every week in the ratings. Which
the tertiary brand.
Call it what you will. Minor league, tertiary.
Call it what you will.
The C brand. Whatever you want to call it, sure. But each week, they have a victory over a WWE brand.
Okay.
If you take that away from AEW, they have zero bragging rights.
Absolutely.
And that's where I'm coming from. Like, sure, they're not going to do anywhere close to Raw or SmackDown for at least 5 years.
So then we're saying we agree to agree.
Well, I'm putting an asterisk by it. How about that?
Oh, boy.
All right. So, listen, we're running out of time here. There's a game I want to play with you, Eli.
How much time do we have?
As much as we want, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, then how do you run out of time when you have infinite amounts of it?
Well, you have babies to take care of.
I do. They're running around like crazy right now. I think one might have peed under this desk I'm at right now.
Oh, that's so sweet. So here's what I want to do. And by the way, if you guys hear dogs barking in the background, Eli got saddled with 2 dogs, which sounds like it may be forever now.
It might accidentally be forever. My fosters are, and not because I am, failing and deciding to keep them, but because the shop might no longer exist.
What would you change their names, or would you keep their names?
Well, that's the funny thing is when I picked the dogs up, they were like, we were asking if we get to name them. They were like, oh, they might have names. And we were waiting. Nobody gave us a name. So we left. And on the way back, we just started naming them. And then I told the lady, I texted her, I said, hey, we're calling this one this and this one this. And she was like, oh, we'll call the shop because they have names for them, and it'll be easier to adopt them out if people know the names. And I'm like, okay. So I called the shop. Nobody ever called me back. And I said, well, screw it. I'm sticking with the names we got, and I like them anyway. So I've got Tuna, and I've got Felix. And the one's Tuna because he's chunky, little chunky tuna.
Oh, I like it. That's cute. All right, my game. I'm going to name it's almost a word association game. I'm going to name a whole bunch of wrestlers off, and I want you to tell me what comes to mind, whether it's a funny story, whether you like them, you don't like them, which knowing you probably, not too many people you don't like. But, I mean, feel free to talk freely about some of these guys. I'm just randomly picking a whole bunch of guys because I don't know who you know or don't know, and I think it'd be fun to do it this way. Are you down for this?
All right, well, let me think. Let me think if I'm down for this. Let me think if I can do something like this. This is a daunting task you're asking for right now.
I know.
Well, Well,
Come
let
on,
me
Eli.
see.
Come on.
Welcome, everybody, to the Word Association Wrestling Game. I am your host and your contestant, Eli Drake. Take it away, Dennis.
Boy, I never felt more like Andy Richter in my life until then. All right. Let's start with R-Truth.
I did his entrance in the 2K games, and I loved it. It was amazing. So if you play the game, which, by the way, 2K20, I know there's a lot of stuff going on with there. Seems like everything I'm touching in the last couple months is like riddled with controversy. But I did his entrance way back in the 2K16, and it's amazing, and I killed it. But I've never really had a lot of interaction with him other than a handshake, hello, nice to meet you, and he's been nothing but cool and good to me.
Roderick Strong.
Decent dude. We worked a solid match together back in 2012 at FSW.
How about Finn Balor?
Don't have a lot of interaction with him, really. I mean, met him at the Performance Center when he very first came in, and my ass was on my way out about a week later. And that was about our only interaction, I think.
Johnny Impact.
Johnny Impact. Love him.
All right. The Miz.
Very little interaction with him as well.
Right.
Although when I was at NXT, people used to call me Jacked Miz, which I never got because I don't think we look similar. I don't think that we do all that much similar, except maybe once or twice when I've worn a suit. But I don't think that we talk similarly. But what can you do?
Rey Mysterio Jr.
Cool dude. Good dude. We got to do a little spot together down in Tijuana about 2 years ago.
Did you get tested afterwards?
Did I get tested?
Yeah, because nothing good happens in Tijuana.
I mean, it was a pretty quick in and out, but now that you remind me, maybe I should go get tested. But he gave me a solid 619, and at first I thought you were going to tell me he was going to transmit something to me through that move, but I guess we're good.
Yeah. How about Jeff Hardy?
Awesome dude. Great dude. I actually have a better connection, I think, with Matt than with Jeff, but yeah, Jeff's always been good.
All right. Let's see here. How about Dash Wilder?
Love him. Actually, just hung out with him in Vegas. What was it? Whenever SmackDown was in Vegas just a few weeks ago, I was hanging out with him and Buddy Murphy and Scott Dawson for a little bit.
Daniel Bryant?
Very little interaction with him. Great dude, though. I met him way back in 2008 at a Ring of Honor show. And then he was rehabbing at the Performance Center back in 2014 when I was there. And, just hanging out, chatting, talking. Very smiley. Always smiling and laughing and whatnot.
Dolph Ziggler.
Again, little interaction with him. Actually, I know his brother decently well. His brother comes to my parties sometimes, or we'll roll around in a ring up here in Burbank together sometimes. He was at Johnny Impact's birthday party just last month, but just very casual here and there, but no real big interaction.
Kenny King.
Love Kenny King.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have here?
Kenny King's my dude.
Is he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're tight. If I go to Vegas, I'll hit him up. We've done the mocap games together. Way back doing all the Vegas shows at FSW, we always cross paths. Always cool.
Dalton Castle.
Limited interaction. Rarely do I feel like you actually get the real him, but seems like a decent guy. He's always been complimentary.
That's one guy I think if I had to put together a list of guys I'd like to meet, I think he would be on it because he just seems so interesting.
I am animated at meet and greets, but he is 100% completely over the top in his gimmick at the meet and greets.
Eric Young.
Good dude, solid dude.
How about Frankie Kazarian?
I like him, of course. I mean, he's part of SCU. I'm good with all those guys. But yeah, I mean, Frankie, I'm not super tight or anything, but Sky's the one that I'm tight with. But Kazarian's cool.
EC3.
That's one of the guys I was always hanging out with before he left. Part of ZNA.
ZNA. What is that?
ZNA. I can't talk about it, but it was a select group of guys. It's actually wide stretching and ever evolving. But I think the original group was like EC3, DJ Z, Robbie E, all E names apparently. I think Eddie Edwards. I don't know. And eventually, then it stretched out to like me, Seidel, Moose, Trevor Lee. I think that's mostly the group there.
Teddy Hart.
Good dude. Obviously, he's been in a lot of trouble and whatnot, but he's always been super cool. And he always carries around his cat like a supervillain.
Yeah, that's so weird, isn't it?
I remember he had first come back to Impact in like 2017. We were doing some shows up in like Rahway, New Jersey or something. And he popped in and he's got, the full regalia on as far as all his clothing. And then he's just carrying this white cat in his arms. I'm like, this guy is on another level.
I'm looking through this list, and I'm trying to think of names that you might know, because I don't want to ask a question of someone you
want to know somebody I hate?
Who?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm not sure.
There's got to be. Not that you would tell me, because I think that you would not air any dirty laundry on a podcast like that. Never mind.
No, never.
Never mind. How about Luchasaurus?
Yeah, no, I dig Luchasaurus. We've done a lot of bar wrestling work, of course. We've rolled around here and there. I think we have different philosophies on in-ring style, but I don't know. I've always dug him, always liked him. Easy guy to get along with, and he hooked me up with a really great chick that makes my gear and makes his gear.
Oh, that's people don't know this, but you guys have to buy your own gear. A lot of people think that the organization...
And it's expensive as hell.
Would you think there'd be like a one-place shop for wrestling gear at this point in the industry?
I mean, you can get stuff at high spots, but I haven't gotten anything at high spots in probably 10 years and more. At the same time, I like to have somebody local to where I can, go try on the stuff. If it's not working out, I can go back and take it back over there and be like, hey, can you... tighten up this, loosen up this, whatever. And then plus, if I have something that's like my jackets, for instance, I buy those jackets and then I just have somebody like the jackets I wear to do interviews and whatnot, those leather jackets. Like I'll buy those and then just have, somebody add the logos on the back and whatnot. So like in the middle of her making all my trunks and vests and everything, it was like, well, hey, I've got this jacket too. Can I come by and drop it off? And you can add everything on the back.
I find it weird, and this might be just me being judgmental, and if you fans out there or people that do this, I apologize for thinking it's weird, but I've seen you sell some of your gear online. I always find it weird.
You know what? I never have, though.
No?
I put up the thing for it. I have a mailbox full of emails, and I think I responded to 2 or 3 of them, and then I got tired of it. So I've still got everything still sitting here. I've got 3 replica belts that I'm trying to get rid of. You can't get these. These don't exist anywhere. I had them custom made, but they were. I wanted them redone, so I got redone the way that I wanted them. And so I've got these 3 replica belts. There's 1 tag team title. There's actually 2 Impact World titles. The Eli Drake version, the one that I wore. Pretty much nobody else had it except Austin Aries for like a month or something before they gave him the new one. But yeah, I've got both of them. I'll sign them. I'll put them out there. Anybody wants to get them, just DM me. But I haven't sold any of that stuff yet. But yeah, there's a lot of people who will sell their gear, and I'm like, how do you do that? That seems like actually a great idea for anything that you don't want. But for the most part, I kind of want a lot of my stuff because I'm like, if there's a big match that I had or something like that, I'm like, man, this would be kind of cool to have. Like, if I have kind of like a trophy room, if you will, at some point down the road, it's like, well, I could have these boots, have a picture of me in them. If I won this title here or did this.
Yeah, I think it's weird when guys buy that kind of stuff. Like, well,
there ain't any girls buying it.
I like you. I think you're great, but no way would I ever buy a pair of Eli Drake, ring-worn trunks.
Okay, now the trunks thing I can kind of get. The boots thing I can kind of get because of the fact that you can say like, Hulk Hogan wore these trunks when he slammed Andre the Giant or something. I'd be like, okay, that's kind of cool. And you got the trunks plus like maybe like a picture of it happening or something like that. That's kind of badass. I get that. At the same time, the weird stuff you get is when guys are like, hey, what do you wear under your trunks? Can I buy that? Can I buy the socks that you wrestle in? Different shit like that. And it's like, that's a little strange. And I've heard the girls talk about, some guys will get their fan mail address and send them pantyhose and stuff like that and ask them to wrestle in them and then not wash them and send them to them.
Boy,
oh boy.
It's got to be rough being a female wrestler. I could only imagine. Oh gosh, that makes me cringe.
I mean, I get a good amount of like really creepy stuff in my DMs, but I can't imagine the sheer volume of creepy emails and messages that the girl wrestlers get.
Like, hey Eli, will you do a
women
podcast
wrestlers?
with me?
Excuse me, don't let me offend anybody. I forgot that the word "girl" is offensive now.
Eli, will you do a podcast with me? Wow, that's creepy.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably the creepiest one.
But it worked. I had you at hello.
I mean, that's a little strong.
Okay, I had you at please.
Sure, yeah.
That works out good. All right, let's wrap. Hey, pay-per-view coming up.
Pay-per-view December 14th in Atlanta, but that's already sold out. So guess what you could do? You can get it on Fight TV, on the Fight app. So is Fight TV and the Fight app the same thing? There's FITE. Yes. I know that's what we're on. Anyway, Fight app, get it there, December 14th. Catch it, catch me, the NWA, into the fire.
Are you it looks like are going to wrestle Ken Anderson at the pay-per-view?
We shall see what happens as the weeks roll along, sir.
I mean, unless they're going to turn it into a tag team match, or you're going to book someone else in your place because you're.
I don't know if he's going to be back now. I kind of bashed him in with a steel turnbuckle, so he might be done. He might retire now.
Well, that's what he was a good guy, had a great career. I'm sad to see him go out like that, but you know what? In all honesty, you don't turn your back to you. You just don't. That was Bush League. I
like that you said you don't turn your back to you.
Yeah.
Don't you turn your back to you?
Don't.
Well, I mean, that's the first lesson in somewhere. I'm sure it's a lesson somewhere. Don't turn your back.
And by the way, I geeked out to listen when you were on Stone Cold, and you're like, "Yeah, I got a podcast." And he's like, "You got a podcast too?" Like you two were the only two guys that have wrestling podcasts.
Well, no, he was probably like, you have a podcast too, like every other wrestler on earth. I feel like everybody and their brother has a wrestling podcast at this point. But guess what? We got the best one going today. Yeah.
I think we have a different one. Here, little do people know, Eli, one of my pitches to you was, look, we're going to do this podcast, but we're just going to sit and talk wrestling. And if you listen to any wrestling podcast with wrestlers, none of them are doing timely stuff. They're all looking back at their careers or telling stories on their careers. They're not really focusing too much on what's going on now or talking about the politics of wrestling or just talking wrestling like two guys would watching a pay-per-view, kind of like we do.
Sure, I'm probably talking myself out of all kinds of jobs at this point. Hell yeah!
Not all of them, just a few. Okay, where can people find you?
But, by the way, hold on, we can't go anywhere yet because it's been a little while. We need a single Dennis update.
And Blue Chew. So I'll give a Blue Chew here in a second after.
Hey now, they go hand in hand.
Let me see here. Did I tell you about having to meet this girl's parents?
No, you did not. I didn't even know you went on a date and you're already meeting parents.
I've gone on several. So I went out with this girl. We went day drinking.
How'd you meet her?
Tinder.
Tinder, okay.
We went.
What apps are you on, by the way?
I got off a lot of them, but I think I'm just on Tinder and like the new Facebook dating app, and that's it.
That's a thing. I didn't know it was a thing.
It is a thing. I like the Facebook better than Tinder, but
see, I like Bumble better than Tinder.
See, I did like Bumble a little bit, but so I went out day drinking with this girl, And we started at about 1, and it's like 7 o'clock. We're not super drunk or anything because we were, moderate and eating and taking our time, and sometimes we nurse them, but still
Yeah.
day drinking. About 7:30 rolls around, and she's like, "Listen,
What
there's
day of the week is this, by the way?
it's Saturday. It's a Saturday
Okay.
night." She goes, "Listen, at this other bar about 10 minutes away, they have a Neil Diamond impersonator, and halfway through his act, he changes into an Elvis impersonator. Do you want to go see him?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah. I'm all in.
Hell of a concert.
Yeah, this is going to be great." So I follow her over to the bar. We pull up. I sit down. We pull up, and we're walking up to the door. She stops and says, "Listen, before we walk in, I forgot to tell you something." I go, "Okay, what's up?" She goes, "So my mom, my dad, my aunt, my brother, a couple cousins are in there, and maybe a few other family members are all inside this bar right now."
So you're rolling up on the family reunion.
Yeah, and I'm like, "You forgot to tell me?" She's like, "Yeah, I forgot to tell you." I go, "So what are we gonna tell them?" She's like, "Well, I don't know." I'm like, "I'm guessing you don't want me to tell them." And excuse my language here.
That's easy.
Well-
this is my friend Dennis.
But see, that's what I would thought. But I go, "I guess you don't want to tell them that you met me off a fuck site, because essentially that's
Why is it got to be that?
what else is going on Tinder?
Come on.
What else?"
I've met a girlfriend on Tinder.
Yeah, did you sleep with her in the first 2 dates?
I did, yeah.
See,
I think every girlfriend I've ever had I slept with on the first or second date.
well, I mean, look at you. You're Eli Drake.
Oh boy.
I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, look, if they're not doing it in the first or second date, I'm figuring they're not interested anyway.
Well, there's another story for another podcast. But anyways, she's like, "If you want to turn around, I don't blame you." I go, "You know what? If I turn around now, the story ends here." I said, "Whether I see you again or not, if I walk through those doors, this makes this date so much more of a better story to tell my friends. So I'm going in." So we walk in, we sit down, I meet a few of the family, and I'm watching the show, and our mom is trying to talk to me, and I look over, and she's trying to cuddle with me, like with her mom.
Who, her mom?
No,
Oh.
the girl.
I thought you were already cuddling with her mom. I was like, all right, go ahead and move.
With her mom and dad sitting on the other side of me, and I'm feeling really awkward here because, it's like, holy shit, I'm in the middle of a family reunion on a first date with this girl. So after
At least she's comfortable. Could be the other way.
Well, I'll say this. There was a misrepresentation of her pictures also. Yeah.
That's the worst.
And look, I think I'm a okay looking guy. Wait
a minute. Okay, well, hold on. So if there's a misrepresentation, whoa, wow, I sound drunk at this point. If there's a misrepresentation of her looks via her photos at this point, you had to have figured that out kind of early, though, right? So how do you get to the point then of going to another bar with her? Because that's the point where you'd be like, all right, I'm going to exit out of here. Or was it one of those where it's like, well, I'm already here, so if it ends up there, it ends up there.
That's it. I knew that.
Okay.
I knew
that's guy thinking. I get it.
That I knew that it wouldn't go any further than going out and drinking or having fun together, because I was a little bit irritated. But at the same time, I blocked this day off. I might as well go make the best of it, because I could be sitting by myself at a bar day drinking. So I might as well.
Right.
So I'm sitting there. She's cuddling up to me. I've got her parents on the other end. I'm starting to feel uncomfortable. I go, you know what? I look over at her and said, hey, do you want something to drink? She's like, oh, yeah, great. Awesome. Go to the bar and walk right out the door into my car.
All right.
Start my car. I pull away. It's 15 minutes from my house to the bar. And in those 15 minutes, I had 37 text messages.
Wow. Wow.
37.
So, okay. So you were uncomfortable with the family being there?
Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't you be?
I don't, I guess it depends on the presentation, because like I've had girls before make a big deal about meeting members of my family when it wasn't like, like I can remember one girl that I was kind of like casually dating. She came to one of my wrestling shows. It just so happened that one of the girls I was dating and my dad came to the same wrestling show. And they just happened to meet because they were just there. And it was like, oh, hey, Aaron, this is my dad. Dad, this is Aaron. And, some girls make a big deal about that, but it was just like, well, they're here, so meet up. But the whole idea of taking you to a place where it's like the whole damn family, like I'd have just been like, man, you could have told me about this before. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, kind of roll with the punches. But I don't know. If I was turned off by what showed up as opposed to the pictures, I'd have been nice, had a couple drinks with her, and then been like, all right, well, I'm going to get out of here. Blah, 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 whatever. Nice meeting you, and bye-bye.
You what?
But yeah, that kind of sucks to just kind of dip on her.
Well, hang on now. I mean, I'm put into this situation now because if she would have just sat there, it would have been all right. But now she's...
Well, wait, At what point does she tell you about the family?
At the door.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that's too much. I mean, unless she just found out, then I guess I get it. But
I think she already knew, and she knew for a while. Because she waited until we got to the door of the bar. Now, if she would have told me earlier, like, look, there's this really cool thing. Downside is I got some family members there. Do you still want to go? It'd give me time to digest it and think about it, opposed to we're standing at the door.
Yeah, that's poor form.
And I was a little irritated by that. You put on top of... it was I don't want to use the word gross misrepresentation of her looks, but it was not good.
Is that double entendre you just used right there?
Yeah, it was not a very fair to me representation. It would be me telling a girl I look like Eli Drake and then Dennis Earl shows up.
Well, I mean...
You see where some girls may be upset?
I mean, look, there's nothing... That's pretty annoying.
Yeah. So, and then she tries to cuddle up on me. I'm like, no bueno. I'm out. I can't do this. And I hit the door, and 37 text messages. 37 in 15 minutes.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
I mean, like to send you one FU text message and maybe a follow up is one thing, but 37. Wow.
Yeah.
So. She's a complete psycho.
So, do you know what I...
But then again, she probably was just thirsty. You'd set her up. She's waiting for this drink the whole time. At least if you told her you were going to the bathroom, she wouldn't have any expectations.
Yeah, well, I guess I messed up there, huh? But you know what I did?
It happens.
You know what I didn't need that night, though?
I've done the same thing, though.
Yeah, you see? It's not the first time I've left someone at a bar. In my younger days, believe it or not, Eli... There was a period in my life where I was actually a really attractive guy. I was getting girls I probably shouldn't have been getting at that point in my life. So I'm smart.
I mean, I've been to people's house and just like left, and I'll be like, "Oh, hey, I left something in the car," and then I'll just dart.
I did that at a bar. I went out with this girl who came back into town, and she's like, we get to the bar and we're drinking. She's like, so here's the deal. If you're going to, fool around with me, you're buying all the drinks tonight. I'm like, oh. And then she starts ordering all these expensive drinks. We're talking like $20 drinks. And
I'd say, all right, see you later.
And at some point, I kind of did that. But instead, I army crawled out the front door so she wouldn't see me.
Well, you know what, though? Because that is the height of arrogance, to tell somebody you're going to finance my night out. And so if you ask me, she or anybody who does that, with guy, girl, anybody deserves that. So I would say run that tab up and then leave her with it, because how much of an asshole are you to go out with somebody and say, hey, you're going to pay for everything that I have tonight. And she's acting like she's giving you sex. Doing a favor to you, it's so ridiculous. Like, that's supposed to be a two-way street, right? Sex is supposed to be two-way, enjoyable. It's not supposed to just be one way. It's not like you're the only one getting enjoyment out of it. I would hope not. In that case, you might need to go and get some lessons here, get a couple run-throughs. But regardless, like, it's so ridiculous to act like she's doing you a favor that you need to finance her night out. I think you did the right thing.
But with Blue Chew, you don't need lessons.
I was going to say, I hope you didn't take your Blue Chew that night.
I have done
Don't waste it.
I've done that once in this time period where it's like, oh yeah, take the Blue Chew and nothing happens, and I'm like,
oh
no,
yeah.
I'm like, oh no, because now I'm driving home with a Blue Chew hard on, and it's like,
oh no,
no. But go get your Blue Chew. Go to BlueChew.com. Use the promo code Perspective. With that promo code, Eli and his puppies will send you a free order of Blue Chew. All you have to do is pay for shipping and handling. And now that he has, taken on the responsibility of raising these 2 orphan dogs, he can't really afford to pay people's shipping and handling anymore. So
that's right.
That's on you guys at this point. So go.
I'm over here shipping them out, complete with puppy piss, ready to rock, hot off the presses. No puppy piss. I'm kidding.
No, but I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, he's not. But if you're not,
give me a call.
Yeah, he can make it happen. But
got plenty of it over here.
Yeah, go to BlueChew.com. It's made with the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know it works. I'm telling you it works because I've used it. Look, I'm 40 years old and 42 now, and I have a lot of stress in my life. And believe it or not, and I thought it was always a bullshit excuse, but when you have a lot of stress, your libido doesn't quite work the same, especially at my advanced stage at 42.
Of course.
So you take the Blue Chew, and it really helps you power through some of your problems. Trust me on that. And it's $5 shipping and handling. You spend $5 on stupid stuff all the time. Your mocha cappuccino latte frappa thingies and your Young Bucks pens and whatever. I mean, stop for just one day and go to BlueChew.com. Use the promo code Perspective. Have Eli send you out a shipment and make your spouse happy in bed. Don't do it for you. Because look, we all know you. And I'm talking to you, whether you're in your car or on a bus right now. We know you don't care. You want to wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, get done before the start of the second quarter of the football game. But do it for her because she'll stick around longer if you do it. And she'll appreciate that you're going the extra mile for her.
That's right. Get yourself a stress-free boner.
Thank you. A stress-free boner. I like that.
That's my addition to this.
I like that. So go to Blue Chew, do all that stuff. It helps keep the podcast going, and right there alone is why you should do it. And if you can't do it and you've already done it, get your friend to do it, and then steal his Blue Chew because he probably won't use it. So I don't care. Just order it. Beg, borrow, and steal. I don't care how you do it, but go do it. Is that a good sales pitch?
For the best you, Blue Chew.
Like, always coming up with that stuff. Eli, where can people find you?
They can find me at the Eli Drake on Twitter and Instagram. They can buy my beautiful, wonderful T-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com/Eli Drake. Soon to be, there will be a shirt on the NWA merchandise. What we call that? Website, whatever. There will be an NWA Eli Drake shirt available here shortly. And what else do I have? NWA Into the Fire coming December 14th, and of course Power every Tuesday 6:05 p.m. at youtube.com/NWA.
No independent bookings yet?
Man, I'm keeping it pretty clear at this point and just kind of staying healthy. Not like independent bookings were keeping me unhealthy. But at this point, it's at the NWA's discretion. I am exclusive, so if anybody would like to book me, you have to contact David Lagana via David J. Lagana. You know what? I'm not going to give out his email here. If you'd like to book me
at Juno.com.
Catch me at book Eli Drake at gmail.com, and then I will forward you to the proper channels.
Oh man, maybe I'll try to book you as a guest on this podcast.
There you go. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'll host and book. Host and be a guest.
And we've been flirting about adding a guest here and there on the show. We don't want to be too guest heavy, but every once in a while I think this is probably something we'll talk about later. And we've kind of flirted through texts back and forth about bringing on a guest here and there and that may like wrestling and may be a wrestler. But I don't know. We're kind of having fun right now doing it just you and I.
That's right. Let's not bring anybody else in until we need to.
All right. Well, listen, head over to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. There you can get all the links to everything you need, from the podcast to Eli's social media, wherever it is, you can go there. Any place you get podcasts, that's where Wrestling Perspective is. So feel free to type in Wrestling Perspective. Make sure you subscribe, rate, leave a comment if that's available on whatever you do. It helps us move up algorithms and rankings and blah, 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 blah. Follow me on Twitter at Dennis77Farrell. I think that's about it, Eli.
Well, by the way, one more thing.
Yes.
If anybody's in the California area or can get to the California area, I have these two beautiful little pit bull puppies. They are about 8 weeks old. They are fantastically fun, friendly, happy, and they are needing a home. So contact me, DM me on Instagram, and I can make that happen for you too if you want some furry friends.
Will you ship them like Blue Chew?
I will. Yeah, I'll ship them right in the box. We'll a little cellophane around them. We'll be ready to go.
poke some holes in the box.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I need you guys to be in the California area. So if you have any California listeners or somebody close by who can make it out here to pick these puppies up, come get yourself a forever friend. Give them a forever home. They are the sweetest little guys you've ever seen.
You're not going to keep one, or can you even keep one in your apartment?
At this point, the plan is to just be a foster daddy, if you will, and to continue foster all the puppies in need up until they get adopted.
Here's one thing people don't know about you, and I was shocked to find this out. Like, once a week, you go to a place and you go and walk dogs. It still blows me away, because that is not what I would envision Eli Drake doing in his free time, which I still think it's awesome. So now that you're kind of a free agent, right? Are you going to another shop to do this again? Are you going to kind of go into dog walking retirement? What is your pet exercising plans for your future?
Well, I'm going to have to find a new place to go, because I don't even know if the place that I've been going to is going to be open still or not. A lot of people were hitting me up because there was this whole news story that happened where there was some sort of thing where one of the girls who worked there picked one of the dogs up and like threw it across the room, and it was an awful scene. And for now, I don't know if it's temporary or what, the damn place has been shut down, and people were yelling at me on Instagram that I support this place. And I'm like, well, I didn't support any place. I went and supported the dogs. I didn't give them any money. I gave them my time to go walk the dogs maybe about 2 or 3 times a week. And that was it. I didn't finance them. They weren't paying me, nothing like that. It was just basically I go in and for about 30, 45 minutes to an hour, just go and walk multiple dogs, just to get them out socialized, get them outside, just kind of, help them get around. And then and that was it. And now at this point, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to foster some puppies, bring them home, kind of help out a little more. So at this point, I might need to find a new place to go. Because I don't even know if that place is going to open back up now, and even if they do, it's kind of like the block's a little hot right now, so I might have to just find a new place to go volunteer. But we'll see what happens.
All right, there we go. Hey, Eli, this week's show over. I guess we'll put a pin in it.
Sure. Yeah. I guess we're overtime, right?
Way over. We're at an hour and a half. So
we don't have a time limit here.
We don't. Is there anything else you want to talk about then?
I don't know. I mean, we could go 3 hours one time if you want.
Can we go Broadway?
Let's do it.
Not tonight.
I can talk all damn day long.
Let's not tonight. We can do a marathon episode, but maybe Thanksgiving week or something, because people will be driving to their grandma's or their parents' house and they need something to listen to in the car, and we can provide that. But I'm done. You know what? I hate the fans so much. I'm calling it a night.
Damn, it's like that.
Yeah, for me at least. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you guys next week. Eli, thank you, my friend.
Good night, everybody.